Welcome back to the channel. My name's Tom, and today I'm taking a look at Colonie Center Mall in Colonie, New York. As always, I'm asking the question, is this a dead mall, a dying mall, or is it doing just fine? Well, come along with me and let's find out. Colonie Center opened in 1966 and was the first enclosed mall in New York's capital region. It was designed by Victor Gruen Associates and built by Home Development, which was a subsidiary of Sears. The original anchor stores were Macy's and Sears. The first store to open was Macy's in March of '66 and was then followed by Sears in August of '66. The rest of the mall, from what I understand, opened in either October or November of 1966. At that time, the mall was about 830,000 square feet, which made it the largest mall in the area. Currently, it's the second largest mall in the area, just behind Crossgates Mall, which is about a mile or two away from here. This video was filmed on a Tuesday at about 11 a.m. at the end of November 2023, so the height of the shopping season. And I know Tuesday, midday isn't going to be very busy, but I would expect it to be busier than this. I've definitely seen malls with less people, but it was pretty dead in here. But let me know what you think about it in the comments. Also, don't forget, if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment, and hit that notification bell. Thanks. From what I understand, during the mall's first 2 decades, it did extremely well and really had no significant competition until the Crossgates Mall opened up about 2 miles away in 1984. Seemingly as a result of the new competition from Crossgates, it was around this time that the owners of the mall announced their plans to renovate and expand the mall. However, for whatever reason, this renovation didn't really begin until about 1988. This renovation lasted until about 1991 when they added a new anchor store, Steinbach, which was located here where Boscov's is today. The Steinbach only lasted until 1995, and the Boscov's moved in 1998. I do love a good mall chandelier, and this one is pretty nice. It's not the most extravagant I've ever seen, but it's up there. Now, before we get too far into this video, let's check out the candy machines and load up on some sugar. Let's see what they got here. My favorite candy is Mike and Ike's, but I didn't see any here, so I did go with these. These are called Spaced Out Candy. And they ended up being basically like Sweet Tarts, but not quite as tart as Sweet Tarts. Slightly disappointing, but not bad. So another thing that was added during the 1988 to 1991 renovation was this new 3 stories Macy's building straight ahead. The original Macy's location was somewhere towards the middle of the mall, but it no longer exists. From what I understand, it was completely gutted and turned into 60 inline stores, including a new food court. The next major renovation of the mall began around 2005 after the mall was sold to Feldman Mall Properties, and it lasted until about 2008 or 2009. The renovation was originally estimated to cost about $82 million, but ended up ballooning to about $110 million. The renovation was intended to give the mall a more up-to-date look, which included what they called an Adirondack theme. They added new flooring, new lighting, new seating, and a huge 2-story fireplace that was meant to give the mall the feeling of a giant living room. We'll actually see that fireplace in a little bit. Personally, it doesn't feel or look like a living room to me, but I do see what they were going for. They also renovated the north side facade of the building, which is the side of the building we entered. They also added a bunch of new businesses during this time, such as the Cheesecake Factory, LL Bean, P.F. Chang's, and Barnes & Noble, which we just walked by. And then in 2008, they added a massive Regal movie theater, which is actually on top of us. It goes up 3 stories, and you can see it when we were walking into the building. It was all the way to the left, and it is massive. You can't miss it. It's probably the biggest, most imposing movie theater I've ever seen. And I think the reason for that is they couldn't build outwards like a normal theater. They had to build upwards. So as a result, you get this towering structure. And once we get up to the second floor, I'll take a look inside that theater as well. From what I read, though, as the renovation ended up costing a lot more than they initially expected, Feldman Mall Properties ran into some financial issues. As a result, Feldman brought in Heitman Value Partners as co-owners of the mall around 2006, and then Heitman eventually bought the entire mall, except for the Macy's and Sears properties, which are owned by different people, in 2009. The mall was then sold again in 2013 to KKR, or Kohlberg, Kravis and Roberts Company, and Colony Pacific. And then the mall was put up for sale again in 2019. And then finally in 2021, the mall was sold to its current owners, Pacific Retail Capital Partners. All right, so now let's head up to the second level, and then once we're done with that, we'll come back down and finish the first level. Now let's take a quick look inside the arcade. This one's called At the Pier Arcade. This might be a New York thing because I don't see this type of arcade too often in the Connecticut, Massachusetts area, which is where I'm from. I usually just see the WoW arcades. And this one is definitely better than the WoW arcades in general. But, like the WoW arcades, there's nobody in here. There almost never is anybody in these arcades. And they've got some decent games. It's not just all claw machines, which is what a lot of the WoW arcades are. They're just full of claw machines and similar type things. But they've got a lot of legit video games in here. That Star Wars one is pretty cool. I don't think I've seen that one before in an arcade. And these, I think they're Fast and Furious racing games. And they actually did have 2 classic arcade machines. They have this Namco Class of 81, and they've also got an actual Pac-Man there. That's unusual. Pretty cool. The only downside to that arcade is I think it uses a card system rather than quarters or tokens. So I'm not going to put my money onto a card when I'm not going to see one of these arcades again for probably, who knows, 4 to 6 months until I go to my next mall in the New York or New Jersey area. But again, it's good to see an arcade, not so good to see it completely empty. If you've been to this mall before, especially if you were here back in like the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, let me know what this looks like to you now. Does this look empty, or does this look like a normal amount of foot traffic to you? To me, it feels kind of empty, especially being that it is the holiday shopping season. But it, for some reason, also didn't feel dead to me. I've been in other malls that feel much more dead than this. But it doesn't feel extremely lively either. So again, let me know what you think about it in the comments. So this is the food court. From what I understand, this was the original location of Macy's, I think. This would have been built around 1991 or so, at the same time that the Macy's moved into their new location at the other end of the hall. But if anybody can confirm that this used to be the Macy's, please let me know in the comments. Straight ahead is the box office for the Regal movie theater, and then the actual theater is up this set of escalators here. I wanted to take a quick look around the theater just to get an idea of what it looks like, but I'm always nervous about filming in movie theaters because even more so than malls, they generally don't want you filming in movie theaters because, they assume, of course, that you're going to go into a movie and bootleg the whole thing. So I'm sure they're not big on people with cameras strapped to their chests. Luckily, I was able to get in and out and get some footage without a problem, but it was a close call there, as you'll see in a second. They have a nice little arcade setup, but not surprisingly, nobody's using it. And it was at this point that I kind of thought I might have been caught. The guy on the right here doesn't look like somebody you want to mess with, and I don't know if he just didn't see the camera or he didn't care, but luckily he didn't have any reaction to me walking by with my camera on my chest. But that did give me a little quick burst of adrenaline there for a half a second. I've said it before, but I think the condition of a food court is a good indicator of how a mall is doing. Not the only indicator, but it's one of them. And this one looks pretty good. All the restaurants seem to be open as far as I can tell. There's not a lot of people though, but that's because it's a little bit early. I think this would have been filmed, it was a little bit before noon, so we weren't quite at the lunch hour yet. I would imagine it probably filled up a bit in the next half an hour to an hour. But overall, it seems to be doing okay. Alright, so now it's time for one of my favorite parts of a mall, riding the elevator. And I'm just going to take it down and then come right back up, and then we'll finish off the second level.
Thank you.
Yep.
7, please.
Yes. Yeah, not too many choices. I don't like the way they put this screen over the windows to the elevator. Wish they wouldn't do that. And something else I noticed in some old photos of this elevator was there used to be a fountain out there straight in front of the elevator. Don't know why they took that out. And back up we go. Here's some photos of what the fountain used to look like. I'm not sure when the fountain was removed, but I would guess probably within the last 10 to 15 years maybe. But I'm not sure.
There we go.
I know this was filmed on a Tuesday, which isn't going to be the busiest day of the week, but this was the holiday shopping season, and there was barely anybody up here. It's definitely not as bad as, say, Enfield Square Mall or Emerald Square, but it's not great. It's fairly dead up here, I'd say. On the left here, this is that 2-story fireplace I was talking about, which they added around 2005, 2006, in that general time frame. And that's supposed to look like a living room. I don't know about you, but that doesn't look like any living room I've ever seen. Now, overall, I would say the mall appears to be doing okay, except for this wing of the mall. This wing of the mall looks kind of dead. Over on the left, we have where the Christmas tree shops used to be. They were there from 1998 until closing just last year in July of 2023. From what I've read, before that, there was a store in there called Fla's, F-L-A-H, which I've never heard of. And then a Herman's World of Sporting Goods, which I have heard of. I think we used to have a Herman's in Connecticut. I vaguely remember that name. I also read that at some point the old Christmas tree shop may be replaced by either a Crate and Barrel or a Saks off Fifth Avenue, but I don't know if either one of those has been confirmed yet. And then at the end of the hall here, we have the former Sears location. The Sears was here from opening day until closing in 2017. And the upper level, I believe, has been vacant since 2017. Nothing has been in there. However, that might be changing in the near future. The Sears building is actually owned by a different company than owns the mall. It was owned by a company called Seritage Growth Partners, but they actually sold the building just last month in April of 2024 to a company called Heidenberg Properties Group for $28 million. The new owners, Heidenberg, say they want to add some new tenants to the second floor of the Sears, such as a Sierra store that should be moving in the not-too-distant future. And they also want to add some entertainment options, like a trampoline park, for example. So if that happens, that could liven up this wing of the mall. But, that's yet to be seen. So we'll have to keep an eye on that and see what happens there. But it does sound like a positive. Straight ahead, of course, is where the first floor of Sears used to be. The first floor of Sears actually closed before the second floor. The Sears downsized to only the second floor sometime in the early 2010s. And then in 2014, Whole Foods moved into part of the old first floor of Sears. So now back to the question of, is this a dead mall, a dying mall, or is it doing just fine? Honestly, I'm not sure. Overall, I would say that the mall appears to be on the borderline of doing just fine and struggling/dying. However, some of the indicators that this mall is doing just fine is that as of 2023, the mall was at 97% occupancy, not counting the Macy's or the stores that are in the old Sears building, as those are not owned by the mall itself. The Macy's is apparently the #1 producing Macy's in the region, except for the Macy's store in New York City. The LL Bean is the second busiest in the entire country, and the Regal Cinemas earns about 76% more than the average Regal theater. Also, the recent sale of the old Sears building to Heidenberg Properties seems to be an indication that the mall is on the upswing. However, when I started to dig a little deeper as part of my research for this video, I also found some red flags that may indicate that the mall isn't doing as well as it may appear on the surface. According to the credit rating agency S&P in an October 2023 report, they noted that the mall continues to perform below their expectations, and also the value of the mall has plummeted over roughly the last 10 years. In 2014, the mall was valued at approximately $145 million. By 2020, the value had dropped by almost $50 million to $96.7 million. And as of 2024, the mall is currently valued for tax purposes at approximately $65.7 million, which is a drop of over $30 million in just 4 years. Then, most recently, the mall's current owners, Pacific Retail Capital Partners, defaulted on their $102.9 million loan, which reached maturity in December of 2023. Since then, the loan has been put into special servicing, which, as far as I understand, means that the mall has requested another year to pay off the loan. I'm not a financial expert, but I believe that if the mall is unable to pay off the loan in that time, they could face foreclosure and then likely have the mall put up for sale again. But we'll have to see what happens there. So based on all that, I'm still a little bit unsure whether I would consider this mall to be doing just fine or dying. I kind of think it might be borderline. There are some things that make me say, oh yeah, the mall's doing great, and there are other things that make me say, ooh, this doesn't look good at all. So I'm a little bit unsure on this one, but let me know what you think in the comments. Now before we go, let's take a drive around the mall and see what it looks like from the outside. First up is the new Macy's building, which opened in 1990. Here's what it looked like when it was under construction in 1989. And this is the north side facade of the building, which they updated around 2006, 2007, 2008. And there's that massive Regal Cinema. Which, just look how much bigger it is than this P.F. Chang's restaurant here. It's just enormous. Here's what it looked like when it was under construction, probably around 2007, 2008. Here's the old Sears, and you can still clearly see where it used to say Sears. And they do have that new style logo up there, which I've never been a fan of personally. Here's the Whole Foods, which opened up in 2014 in the old first floor of the Sears, or at least part of the first floor of the Sears. This floor and decor is also in the old first level of Sears. Even though it does look like a two-level store, they're only using the first level. The second level is still vacant, at least at the time of filming of this video. Coming up, you'll notice this logo for Colonie Center. I could be completely wrong here, but that looks old to me. Was that there before they did the renovation on the mall in the mid-2000s? It looks like it might have been, but that's just a total guess on my part. And this, of course, used to be the Christmas tree shops, which closed in July of 2023. And I wish we had added Christmas tree shops that looked like that back in my area. The ones that were around me just looked like regular old stores. They didn't have that cool old design. Here's the Boscov's, which was originally Steinbach from 1991 to 1995. And then, like I mentioned earlier, it became the Boscov's in 1998. And believe it or not, I still have never been in a Boscov's. And we're back to the Macy's. And there you have it. That's the Colonie Center Mall in Colonie, New York. I hope you liked the video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment, and hit that notification bell. I've got a lot more mall videos coming up, as well as store walkthroughs and, of course, flea markets. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.